Sportsmole understands that Grealish and Man City are now open to parting ways this summer. City would prefer to send Grealish out on loan, but they're reluctant to let him go to a fellow Premier League club who could rival them for a Champions League spot. However, Grealish's 300 grand a week wages would be an issue towards any possible move away, as teams who aren't challenging for those top five spots would struggle to afford that. So we've spoken, of course, many times about Grealish, haven't we, Stephen? And it seems as if his time at City is coming to an end. And as I said, their loan exit is what we understand is what City would prefer, which, seems maybe is a bit of a surprise. What do you make of that going into the summer?
I don't think it's what they prefer. I think it's realistic. Maybe I'm wrong there, but I think City are open to a loan because they know no one's going to pay 300 grand a week, and no one's going to pay the. You can't sell Jack Grealish for less than 40 million. Really, Jack Grealish. It's almost like I think City's logic would be Jack Grealish is even at his age now. Look, he's 29. He turns 30 in September. I know because I'm exactly 10 years older than him. Same birthday as well. I turn 40 in September. He turns 30. Damn him. But anyway, he still has a lot of market value. He's Jack Grealish. He's got an awful lot of quality. Everyone knows that. And I think City would be hoping that if he goes on loan to another team, does really well as he will, someone's got to, pay 30, 40 million for him because he's Jack Grealish and he has the quality. A maverick of a footballer. I think it's very obvious, very obvious that he is on his way. Look, I was reading the quotes from Guardiola last night. Guardiola defended him personally, and he talked about how he was the one who fought for him to get there. But he said, Jack has to play every 3 days, and it hasn't happened this season or last season either. And he said, and I quote, and he needs to do it with us or another place. And he said the same or another place part of the answer in response to another question too. He sort of said it's on Grealish to an extent, but he's been saying that for about a year now, And I think at this point, if we're being serious about City's, hunger and drive, and no, there are plenty of rumours which I won't, gossip, but there are plenty of rumours about, Jack Grealish and what's causing, the off the field, the on the pitch stuff. We all see the tabloid headlines and so on. But ultimately, Grealish he's not playing for a reason. There has to be a reason behind the scenes. He's £100 million record-breaking transfer that Guardiola fought for, in his own words, aggressively. That is incredibly well liked in the squad. That had a massive part of the ideal Guardiola system. He played a huge part in that treble run where he was, that creative wide playmaker who worked it incredibly aggressive. He's strong, he's physical, he's smart, he uses the ball really well. He's everything a Guardiola side would want. When Guardiola was sort of like getting frustrated because the players weren't, and in his own words, doing 1,000 million passes. Like Grealish is absolutely perfect for that. Yet Grealish wasn't playing. That tells you something about what's going on there. Well, we don't know what's going on. It tells you about the strength of what's going on, if that makes sense. There is something clearly, and there is clearly an issue there of some nature because Guardiola logically should be leading on Jack Grealish, given his outlay. And I know he talked about, look, I'm just rotating the players. You have to sit at home in the stands or whatever because we've got too many. I'm sorry, but there's no way. Like, can you imagine? Can you imagine? Look, for example, Akanji is immediately back into the squad. He would never be rotated out and put in the stands because Guardiola trusts him. Jack Grealish is a totally different player, but he's £100 million treble winner. There's not a single one of those treble winners that would be rotated out of the squad, the regular ones, if they weren't starting, because Guardiola trusts him. The fact that Jack Grealish is getting the same treatment as Claudio Echeverri, Oscar Bob, Kusanov, as in the spare guy who can be rotated, it speaks volumes. We can't be naive about this. There clearly is an issue of some kind there. I don't know who the issue is with, and that will come out, I'm sure, in time. But the fact is, Jack Grealish is far too good. He was far too integral to City's greatest ever side, arguably. Or not integral, just a massive part of it. And clearly, he's far too well paid to be a squad player and sit there and be left in the stands because Guardiola needs to make some changes. Something's gone wrong there. So I think he's almost certainly going to go on loan. And I heard some rumours he nearly went on loan in January anyway. So yeah, I think the writing's on the wall.
Yeah, and on top of all that, I think the return to Aston Villa, of course, has been mooted a lot, but we understand that Sportsmall that he's categorically ruled out a return to Villa Park, and he's also not keen on a move abroad. So, and that's despite sort of reports about links with Napoli. So, with that in mind, where could Grealish go? It sort of limits where the teams that are
Spurs.
interested in him. You think Spurs?
Yeah, he was rumoured to go on loan. Nearly went on loan at the end of the January transfer window, what I personally heard, and I think I can imagine him going alone there. He'd like London. He'd like life in London. He's there quite often anyway, you know. So I can imagine him going to someone like Spurs or don't know about United. I don't think he would do. I don't think he'd mind playing for United, but I just don't think he would do given the City links. I think he's quite a emotionally intelligent man, and I think he'd be. I don't think he'd want the noise that surrounds that, but I can see him going on loan to someone like Spurs. I'm sure a lot of teams would take him on loan. I'm sure Newcastle wouldn't, scoff at the chance to take him on loan. Not as they play a different way, but he's Jack Grealish, and yeah, I'm sure he'd love to go to Newcastle as well. They'd suit his mentality, put it that way, up in Newcastle. That's not even derogatory. It's just Jack Grealish loves a fun time, and so do the Geordies. So there's lots of sides that I'm sure would take Jack Grealish on loan, loads of them. And I think someone like Spurs would be great with his experience for him. We'll see. It won't be Villa. It's not. I can't see it being Chelsea. It definitely wouldn't be Arsenal. It won't be Liverpool. Newcastle, maybe. That's just me wildly guessing. Maybe a team like West Ham can get in somehow. I don't know. I don't know. I can't really see him playing for Bournemouth. Fulham, maybe at a stretch. Brighton, it doesn't seem very Brighton. I can only really think Spurs, someone like that. But he'll be Premier League. He'll be alone, and he'll probably do quite well as well, I reckon.